Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Nisha Vater and this is my review of Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant. I love this. Let's just get that out of the way from the beginning. The first part of this video is going to be spoiler free, and then I'll be very clear when I'm going to delve into spoilers. Just because I've got thoughts and I'd like to discuss it with people in the comments. So let's just get straight into it. This is a sci-fi kind of horror book. And it's about like killer mermaids basically. So you're mostly following the perspective of Victoria or Tori, and like 7 years ago her sister was with an entertainment company called Imagine, and they went out to sea into the middle of the ocean, like in the Mariana Trench, to kind of film a documentary and try and discover if mermaids were real. Now this isn't a spoiler because it happens right at the start of the book. It's like the preface. Everyone on that boat is missing. They'll die, and there's some footage found of these mermaid creatures. And this is now 7 years later in 2022, and Imagine is collecting a crew of lots and lots of scientists and specialities of all areas to do with the sea and things like that, to send out another big ship out to this place to find out what happened to this original ship. Are mermaids really real? What happened to the crew? Is there anything that we can discover with what's going on? So that's kind of how the story starts. So Victoria, or Tori, is a scientist, and she's her speciality is listening to like the sounds of the ocean and differentiating between different sea creatures and their sound. And then there's a whole dozens and dozens of other scientists with lots of different specialities. I can't go into them all because I don't understand all of them off the top of my head anyway. This is very science heavy, but I think it really makes the story feel really real because the science is so well integrated, and I'm pretty sure it's all real scientific processes anyway. So because that feels so grounded and so real, the slight addition of the mermaids makes you think this could actually be real. Are there actually mermaids? Because so much of the sea, we know more about space than we know about the sea. And this is like the deepest part of the ocean where we've never had people go down very far into it. So you have no idea what's going down there, which kind of adds to the level of creepy and horror. So then I'm sure you can imagine they're in the middle of the ocean. They're discovering if mermaids are real or not, and a lot happens. I would say this is quite a violent and like descriptively gory book, and the horror is more so like a violence based rather than like a kind of psychological kind of horror, in my opinion. But I loved it. I thought it was like a really well built story. You come in at the start and you kind of feel like you know where it's going on. You've got the integration of all these characters, all their different plot points. They've all got different reasons for being on this ship. Some of them are wanting to find out if the mermaids are real. Some of them are just wanting their next big break, or access to a lab, basically. So they're all there for different reasons. And the arc of the story is really good, and I really enjoyed how it went. My favourite part of the story is the kind of inclusion of so many different things. There's an autistic character in here, and I can't speak for how good the representation is, but from reading its perspective, I feel like it was handled very, very well. And she's a really great character, and it shows how her autism affects her in her daily life and how she works with it in her job and the accommodations she's had made for her and things like that. And I just thought it was handled really well from my perspective. It looked like it was handled really well. There's a lot of mental health discussions in this book as well, and there's a sapphic relationship and discussions of previous sapphic relationships as well. And my favourite part was the inclusion of two deaf characters. So there's a set of twins, and they're both deaf, and their older sister, who they're all scientists of different specialities, and their older sister acts as her translator. And Mira Grant says she's got a little preface at the beginning of the book where she explains her reasoning for the way she's gone about writing the sign language, because she's using sign exact English rather than the way two deaf people would speak together, because I don't know if you know, when you sign, it's not the same word order as English, because that's very labour intensive. You wouldn't bother doing that when you're signing with other deaf speakers. But when you're like signing someone who's speaking or translating or things like that, it's like sign exact English, and it's like an exact word order. So she's explained that she's had to do it that way just for like the ease of, you wouldn't be able to read it the other way, if that makes sense. I don't know if that was confusing or not, but this is obviously talking about American Sign Language, but that's true for British Sign Language as well. So it's basically people who are sign language speakers usually know the two different ways of signing, and it's a total different grammatical structure as well. But I love the inclusion. I don't think I've read a book with deaf characters in it and being like main characters, and I just thought it was an excellent addition to the story, because you can imagine in this horror setting, and they can't hear, and it just adds a whole other level of like scary and creepiness. And I loved it. One of the deaf twins, I can't remember what the device is called, but it's like a mini submarine, but it's just for one person. It's like a capsule, and she can pilot it, and she goes right down into the Mariana Trench and can take video footage and stuff. And that was like a really tense bit for me to read, because I'm like a bit claustrophobic and I don't really like open sea very much, and that was somewhat churning to like read her going right down to the bottom. But I just thought this was such a tense read, and you're on the edge of your seat and you're just wanting to read more and more and more, and I really, really enjoyed it. I've seen a few reviews of people saying that they didn't like the ending, and again, and I feel like I say this in all my reviews, the ending might not be satisfying for some people, but for others it will be satisfying, and I liked the ending. I liked the way this ended. Like, you find out more information in dribs and drabs about the mermaids and about the situation, and then you get to the end and you learn information, and I just thought it ended really, really well, and I loved it. So yeah, I think that's all I'm going to say in the spoiler-free section. If you're ending the video now because I'm going to talk about spoilers, let me know if you're interested in reading this, or if you've read it, and like have a wee discussion with me in the comments. So now we're into spoilers. I love Mira Grant and the way she writes, and how she just goes for it. There's so many writers who would write a book like this and they wouldn't kill off like main characters in the way that Mira Grant does, but the fact that she killed off so many people in this, and they were quite pivotal characters, I thought was really fantastic. And it just shows that no character of hers is safe. When you read a book of hers, you don't really know who's going to live and who's going to die. And that whole section with Tori when she gets flung off the ship was so tense to read, and her delving down into her discovery that, you know, all those mermaids they were coming into contact with were men, and that they were feeding this big, massive female was amazing and stomach turning. And her trying to get back on the ship was so like tense. Like, my heart was racing for her, because I was like, is this, at any moment you thought she was going to die, because you knew Mira Grant was hold no bars, she just killed everyone and anyone. So I wasn't even sure if Tori was going to survive, if she might just be one of the ones that dies too. So that was a really tense bit all the way through it. I also loved the fact that, you know, this is a mermaid story, and in the end you find out that they're sirens. I thought that was excellent, really, really good. And again, talking about like the deaf characters and stuff, I loved how there was such a focus on like the mermaids / sirens, and the fact that they could sign to communicate, and they also mimicked and stuff. You really went on an adventure in the story with their like biology and their science, and the scientists were really trying to work out how to communicate with them and learn how to understand them and stuff. I just thought it was a great incorporated very well into the story, and it was just such a real mix of things going on, because all these characters had different reasons for being there. And yeah, in the end, I loved this book so much. I really enjoyed it. It was very tense, on the edge of my seat read, and I loved it. If you've read the book, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to have a discussion with you. Be sure to like and subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed this review, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.